I'm Marcus Santos, 35 years old, and for the past 15 years, my family has seen me as the failure who couldn't even finish college. At every family gathering, my younger brother Daniel would smirk and introduce me as the family disappointment. While he bragged about his corporate job and MBA, what they didn't know was that I'd been quietly building something extraordinary from my tiny apartment, a software company that would eventually employ over 3,000 people and generate $2.8 billion in annual revenue. The moment everything changed was at Mom's 70th birthday party. When Daniel pulled out his phone to show off his latest paycheck, his face went white as he stared at the company logo, then slowly looked up at me. "Boss." The room fell silent. After years of humiliation, it was finally time for the truth to come out. Like and subscribe if you've ever been underestimated by your own family. Growing up in the Chen household meant living in Daniel's shadow from the moment I could walk. He was 3 years younger than me, but you'd never know it from the way our parents treated us. While I struggled with dyslexia and spent hours just trying to read a single page, Daniel was already solving math problems meant for kids twice his age. I remember the exact moment I realized I would never be enough for them. I was 8 years old, proudly showing Mom my first A+ in art class, the only subject where my brain didn't betray me. She glanced at my drawing for maybe 2 seconds before turning to 5-year-old Daniel, who was building some elaborate tower with blocks. "Look at Daniel's engineering mind," she gushed to Dad. "He's going to be an architect or an engineer someday. Maybe even go to Harvard like your brother did." My A+ got stuck to the refrigerator behind a grocery list, forgotten within a week. Daniel's block tower got photographed and sent to every relative we had. The pattern continued through elementary school, middle school, and beyond. Daniel made honor roll every semester while I fought just to pass. He was student body president. I was the kid who ate lunch alone in the computer lab. He starred in school plays. I built websites for teachers who needed help with technology, something my parents saw as playing around with computers rather than developing actual skills. The golden child treatment reached its peak when Daniel got accepted to Harvard Business School. I'll never forget the day that acceptance letter arrived. Mom literally cried tears of joy, and Dad called everyone in his contact list to brag. They threw him a celebration dinner at the most expensive restaurant in town, complete with a custom cake that read, "Harvard Bound." By then, I was already 2 years into my computer science program at Stanford, a school that's arguably just as prestigious as Harvard, especially for technology. But when I mentioned this during Daniel's celebration, Dad just patted my shoulder dismissively. "That's nice, Marcus, but business is what really matters in the real world. Anyone can learn computers, but it takes real intelligence to get an MBA from Harvard." The worst part wasn't even their favoritism, it was how Daniel embraced it. He never once stood up for me or acknowledged how unfairly I was being treated. Instead, he seemed to feed off the praise, becoming more arrogant with each accomplishment. By high school, he'd openly refer to me as the family disappointment. In front of his friends, always with that smug smile that the phone call that changed everything came on. Tuesday morning in March of my junior year at Stanford, I was sitting in my dorm room, staring at lines of code that would eventually become the foundation of my first real software application when my phone rang. "Marcus, we need to talk." Mom's voice was tight, controlled in that way that meant she was furious but trying not to show it. "Your father and I just got off the phone with your academic advisor." My stomach dropped. I knew what this was about. For the past 6 months, I'd been skipping more and more classes, not because I was lazy or didn't care, but because I'd stumbled onto something incredible. What started as a simple project to help local restaurants manage their online orders had evolved into something much bigger. 3 restaurants had already offered to pay me for customized versions, and 2 Silicon Valley investors had reached out after seeing my prototype. "I can explain," I started, but she cut me off. "Explain what, Marcus? That you're throwing away a Stanford education? You're disappointing us even more than you already have?" The words hit like physical blows. Even when I was succeeding, even when I was on the verge of something revolutionary, I was still the disappointment. "Mom, if you'd just listen." "No, you listen. Your father and I have sacrificed everything to give you and Daniel opportunities we never had. Daniel is excelling at Harvard, maintaining a 3.9 GPA while interning at Goldman Sachs, and you're playing computer games instead of going to class." That phrase, "playing computer games," became the family shorthand for my work. It didn't matter that I was writing sophisticated algorithms, building user interfaces, or creating databases that could handle thousands of transactions. To them, anything involving a computer was just playing around. The conversation that followed was brutal. Dad got on the phone and delivered his ultimatum: finish the degree or lose their financial support entirely. No more tuition payments, no more monthly allowance, nothing. You have 1 semester to get your grades up and prove you're serious about your education, he said. Otherwise, you're on your own. I should have explained what I was building. Should have shown them the contracts, the investor interest, the real potential of what I was creating. But years of being dismissed had worn me down. Part of me was tired of fighting for their approval, tired of being compared to Daniel, tired of being seen as the family failure no matter what I accomplished. So I made the decision that would define the next 15 years of our relationship. Fine, I told them. I'm dropping out. The silence on the other end of the line stretched for what felt like hours. When Mom finally spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. Ow! Could you do this to us? How could you throw away everything we've worked for? Not throwing anything away, I said, but my voice lacked conviction. I'm building something important. You're building nothing but disappointment, Dad said before hanging up. Within a week, Daniel called. He'd clearly been coached on what to say, his voice dripping with false concern. Marcus, I heard about Stanford. Really sorry, man. But hey, maybe this is for the best. Not everyone is cut out for higher education. There's nothing wrong with it. Working with your hands, doing blue-collar stuff. The condescension in his voice was unmistakable. He was already positioning himself as the brother who'd made it, the one who'd followed the traditional path to success. I'll make sure to put in a good word for you if I hear about any entry-level positions, he added. Once I graduate from Harvard, I'll have connections everywhere. That conversation was the moment I decided I wouldn't just succeed. I would succeed so spectacularly that they'd never be able to dismiss me again. Moving back to my childhood, bedroom at age 21, felt like admitting defeat. The walls were still covered with participation ribbons from middle school, science fairs, constant reminders of how I'd always been second best. Daniel's room across the hall had been converted into Dad's home office the moment he left for Harvard, but mine remained frozen in time, a museum of mediocrity. The first few weeks were brutal. Every morning, I'd wake up to the sound of Mom making breakfast, while talking loudly on the phone with her sister about Daniel's latest achievements at Harvard. Every evening, Dad would come home and ask if I'd found a real job yet, while pointedly ignoring my laptop and the code I was writing. But I had a secret weapon. Determination fueled by pure spite. I'd saved every penny from my part-time jobs during college, and I had exactly $2,847 in my checking account. Not enough to rent an apartment, but enough to buy a decent computer and pay for internet hosting. I converted my childhood bedroom into a makeshift office, setting up 3 monitors on my old desk and working 18-hour days. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Mrs. Rodriguez, who owned a small Mexican restaurant downtown, had heard through the grapevine that I did computer stuff. She approached me one afternoon when I was grabbing lunch, looking exhausted and frustrated. Marcus, honey, I need help. My grandson set up this website for online orders, but it's not working right. Customers place orders, but half the time they don't go through. I'm losing money every day. I spent an hour looking at her website that evening. It was a mess. Broken links, unsecured payment processing, and a database that crashed whenever more than 5 people tried to order simultaneously. But it was also an opportunity. Mrs. Rodriguez, I can fix this for you. But instead of just patching it up, what if I built you something completely new? Something that would handle hundreds of orders without breaking, automatically calculate taxes, manage inventory, and even help you track your most popular items. Her eyes lit up. How much would something like that cost? I thought about it. I needed the money, but I also needed the portfolio piece. $500, she agreed, immediately, which told me I'd probably underpriced it. But that contract, handwritten on a napkin and signed with a pen she borrowed from the cashier, became the foundation of everything that followed. Working on Mrs. Rodriguez's system, I discovered something powerful. I loved solving real problems for real people. This wasn't academic computer science or theoretical algorithms. This was building something that made someone's life easier, more profitable, more efficient. The system I built for her was beautiful in its simplicity. Clean interface, lightning-fast processing, and features she didn't even know she needed. When I installed it, Her online orders increased by 300% within the first month. Word spread quickly through the local business community. The owner of the hardware store down the street heard about Mrs. Rodriguez's success and wanted something similar for his inventory management. Then the accountant who did books for half the businesses in town needed a client portal. Then the dentist's office wanted online appointment scheduling. Each project taught me something new, and each client was a step toward independence. I started charging more, $750, then $1,200, then $2,000 per project. Within 6 months, I was making more money than most of my Stanford classmates would earn in their first jobs after graduation. But the real breakthrough came when I met Sarah Kim. She was working as a systems administrator at a mid-sized marketing firm, and she'd heard about my work through one of her clients. When she called me, I expected another small business project. Instead, she had a proposition. "I've been watching what you're doing," she said over coffee. "You're building the same solutions over and over, just customized for different businesses. What if we could create a platform that handled all of this automatically? One system that could adapt to any business type, any size, any industry?" That conversation lasted for hours. By the end, we'd sketched out the architecture for what would become TechFlow Solutions. Sarah had the enterprise experience I lacked, and I had the creative vision she needed. We shook hands on a partnership that would change both our lives, but I didn't tell my family about any of this. As far as they knew, I was still the dropout son who spent all day playing on the computer. Honestly, I preferred it that way. Their dismissal had become my camouflage. Sarah and I filed the paperwork for TechFlow Solutions LLC on a rainy Thursday in November. The filing fee was $275, and we split it down the middle, $137.50 each. We celebrated with gas station coffee and stale donuts, joking that it was probably the last time we'd be able to afford such luxury. We were half right about that. The first year was brutal. We operated out of my childhood bedroom, which had transformed from a teenage sanctuary into a legitimate tech startup. Sarah would drive over every morning at 6 a.m., and we'd work until midnight, surviving on pizza, energy drinks, and the shared conviction that we were building something revolutionary. Our first real client was a chain of auto repair shops that needed a unified system for inventory management, appointment scheduling, and customer communication. The owner, Jim Martinez, had been burned by 3 different software companies that had promised the world and delivered broken, half-finished products. "Not looking for the cheapest option," he told us during our pitch. "I'm looking for something that actually works. Can you deliver that?" Sarah and I exchanged glances. This was it, our make-or-break moment. "We can deliver better than that," I said. "We can deliver exactly what you need when you need it, and we'll be here to support it." The contract was worth $35,000, more money than I'd ever seen in my life. But it also meant we had 6 weeks to build a system that would handle 5 locations, 200-plus employees, and thousands of customers. We didn't sleep much that month and a half. The night before the system went live, I was lying on my childhood bed, staring at the ceiling, when my phone buzzed with a text from Sarah. "Whatever happens tomorrow, we built something amazing." She was right. When Jim's system went live, it was flawless. Not just functional, beautiful, intuitive, fast, everything the previous systems weren't. Within a week, Jim was calling us with a new problem. His competitors were asking who built his software because they wanted the same thing. That's when we realized we weren't just building custom solutions anymore. We were building a platform that could scale. The second client led to a third, then a fifth, then a 10th. Each implementation taught us something new, and each success story brought us 3 more potential clients. Sarah handled the business development, while I focused on the technical architecture, and somehow we found a rhythm that worked. By the end of our first year, TechFlow Solutions had generated $340,000 in revenue. We'd gone from splitting gas station coffee to having a legitimate business with 8 employees and a waiting list of clients. But here's the thing about success. When you're operating in stealth mode, nobody notices. My family assumed I was still struggling, still lived in my childhood bedroom, still drove the same beat-up Honda Civic I'd had since high school, still wore the same clothes I'd bought at discount stores. The difference was that I was choosing to live simply, not because I had to, but because I was reinvesting every dollar back into the company. While Daniel was posting Instagram photos of his Harvard networking events and expensive dinners, was building something that would outlast his MBA by decades. While my parents bragged to their friends about Daniel's summer internship at Goldman Sachs, I was signing contracts worth more than most people's annual salaries. The irony wasn't lost on me. I was succeeding beyond my wildest dreams, but I was doing it invisibly. Every family dinner became a performance where I played the role of the struggling dropout while my parents praised Daniel's real accomplishments in the corporate world. "At least Daniel is building a career," Mom would say, usually while I was sitting right there. Some people just aren't cut out for traditional success. If only she knew that her unsuccessful son was already planning to hire 50 more employees before the year was over, but I wasn't ready to reveal my hand yet. I was having too much fun building an empire while everyone assumed I was just playing games on my computer. The best part was just getting started. The email arrived on a Tuesday morning. That would change everything. I was sitting in what had become our unofficial headquarters, the corner booth at Denny's, where Sarah and Sray held our weekly strategy meetings, when my phone chimed with the notification that made my hand shake. TechFlow Solutions revenue report, $1 million. It had $1 million. In 18 months, we'd gone from a $275 filing fee to 7 figures in revenue. I stared at the screen for so long that Sarah reached across the table and waved her hand in front of my face. "Earth to Marcus. What's wrong? You look like you've seen a ghost." I turned my phone toward her, and her reaction was exactly what mine had been: complete, stunned silence followed by a laugh that was part disbelief, part pure joy. "Holy shit," she whispered. "We're millionaires." "The company made $1 million," I corrected. "We're not millionaires yet, but we were close. It's very close." The crazy part was that nobody in my family had any idea. 3 days after hitting that milestone, I sat through Sunday dinner listening to Dad explain to Uncle Robert why Daniel was the successful one while I was still figuring things out. "Daniel's internship at Goldman Sachs is really opening doors for him," Dad said, cutting into his pot roast. "He's networking with executives, learning how real business works. Meanwhile, Marcus is still in his room doing whatever it is he does on that computer." I took a bite of mashed potatoes and nodded politely. If only he knew that whatever I was doing had generated more revenue in the past month than his entire annual salary. But I'd made a conscious decision to stay invisible. Every dollar TechFlow earned went right back into the business. We were hiring developers, investing in infrastructure, building a war chest for the expansion I knew was coming, while other entrepreneurs my age were buying sports cars and expensive watches to show off their success. I was living like a monk and building an empire. The invisibility was strategic for another reason too. I'd learned that the moment you start flashing success, everyone becomes an expert on what you should do next. Family members who'd never run a business suddenly have opinions about your business model. Friends who'd never written a line of code want to explain how you should improve your software. I preferred operating in stealth mode. My daily routine was laughably modest for someone running $1 million company. I'd wake up at 5 a.m. in my childhood bedroom, make coffee with the same $15 coffee maker I'd bought in college, and check overnight emails from clients across different time zones. By 6 a.m., I was at my desk, writing code or reviewing proposals. That could be worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. The only person who suspected anything was Mom, only because she'd started noticing the strange phone calls. "Marcus, honey, who was that calling you at 6 a.m. on a Saturday?" she asked one morning. "Just a client," I'd say, which was technically true. I just didn't mention that the client was the CTO of a Fortune 500 company who wanted to discuss a $2.8 million contract. The hardest part wasn't hiding the money, it was hiding the pride. When Daniel would launch into his stories about impressing his professors or landing competitive internships, I wanted to interrupt and say, "That's cute. But I employed 12 people last month, and my software is running in 47 businesses across 6 states. But I didn't. I played my role as the family disappointment while secretly building something that would dwarf every traditional success story they'd ever celebrated. The validation came in unexpected ways. Industry publications started mentioning TechFlow. In articles about innovative startups, tech blogs featured our software as a game changer for small businesses. We were invited to speak at conferences, though I usually sent Sarah as our public face. One evening, I was working late when I got a call from a reporter at TechCrunch who wanted to do a feature story on the mysterious founders of TechFlow Solutions. Politely declined. I wasn't ready to come out of the shadows yet. There was something intoxicating about being underestimated while overperforming. Every family gathering became a private joke where I played the role of the struggling dropout while contracts worth more than their annual salaries sat in my email inbox. But, I knew this invisibility couldn't last forever. Success has a way of demanding recognition, whether you want it or not. Daniel graduated from Harvard Business School with all the fanfare you'd expect from our family. The celebration dinner lasted 3 hours, complete with a slideshow of his accomplishments and a toast from Dad about finally having a son we can be proud of in the business world. I sat through the whole thing, nodding and smiling, while secretly reviewing a contract proposal on my phone under the table. The client wanted a $1.2 million system integration project. By the time Dad finished his speech about Daniel's bright future, I'd already mentally allocated the resources we'd need to deliver it. "Marcus, put that phone away," Mom scolded. "This is Daniel's night." "Sorry," I said, slipping the phone into my pocket. "Work stuff," Daniel laughed. "Work? Come on, Marcus. We both know you're probably just playing some mobile game." Everyone at the table chuckled. If only they knew that my mobile game involved managing a company that would soon employ more people than Daniel's entire graduating class. But Daniel's arrogance reached new heights after graduation. He'd landed what he called an incredible opportunity at a cutting-edge tech company as VP of Operations. The way he talked about it, you'd think he'd been personally recruited by Steve Jobs himself. "It's this amazing company called TechFlow Solutions," he announced at Sunday dinner 2 weeks after starting the job. "They're revolutionizing business software. The CEO is supposed to be some kind of genius, though he keeps a pretty low profile." Nearly choked on my water. Starting salary is $180,000, plus bonuses and stock options, Daniel continued, clearly enjoying the impressed murmurs from around the table. "I'll probably be running my own division within a year." Sarah and I had hired Daniel because he was genuinely qualified for the position, despite my personal feelings about him. Our HR department had conducted a blind resume review, and his Harvard MBA and Goldman Sachs experience made him a strong candidate for operations management. The fact that he was my brother was irrelevant to his qualifications, though it added a delicious layer of irony to the situation. What made it even better was that Daniel had no idea who owned the company. We'd structured TechFlow as a series of LLCs, with me as the primary stakeholder, but not listed as CEO on any public documents. Sarah held the official CEO title for exactly this reason, to maintain my anonymity while I focused on the technical side. "Tell us about the CEO," Dad said, leaning forward with interest. "What's he like?" Daniel straightened up, clearly relishing the chance to share insider knowledge. "Well, nobody really sees him much. He's very hands-off, lets the management team run things. Word is, he's some kind of technical genius who started the company in his 20s. It's probably some Silicon Valley prodigy who got lucky with venture capital." I had to bite my lip to keep from laughing. "Sounds impressive," I managed. "The best part is the company culture," Daniel continued. "It's not like those stuffy corporate places where everything moves slowly. We're agile, innovative, disruptive. I'm already working on 3 major initiatives that could transform how we deliver services." Over the following weeks, Daniel's dinner conversations became increasingly entertaining. He'd described meetings I'd attended via video conference projects I'd personally approved, and strategies Sarah and I had developed. The best part was listening to him critique decisions I'd made. "The problem with tech entrepreneurs," he said one evening, "is they understand technology, but they don't understand business. Like our CEO approved this huge hiring spree, but I don't think he really thought through the operational implications." The huge hiring spree he was referring to was our decision to add 47 new employees to handle our explosive growth. I'd spent 3 months analyzing operational capacity, market demand, and cash flow projections before approving it. "Maybe he knows what he's doing," I suggested mildly. Daniel waved dismissively. "Trust me, I've seen this before at Goldman. These tech guys get one lucky break and think they're business geniuses. Good thing he's got people like me to keep things running smoothly." The irony was perfect. Daniel was criticizing my business decisions while collecting a paycheck that I'd personally authorized. He was questioning my operational strategy while implementing systems I'd designed. He was dismissing my intelligence while working for a company I'd built from nothing. But the absolute pinnacle of Daniel's obliviousness came when he started giving me career advice. "You know, Marcus, I might be able to get you an entry-level position at TechFlow. Nothing fancy, maybe customer support or data entry, but it would be a real job with benefits. You can't live in mom and dad's house forever. I nodded thoughtfully. That's really generous of you, Daniel. I'll definitely consider it. What I was actually considering was how long I could let this charade continue before I died from suppressing laughter. Living a double life became an art form. During the day, I'd review Daniel's performance reports, approve his project proposals, and even participate in executive meetings where his initiatives were discussed. At night, I'd sit through family dinners listening to him describe those same meetings from his perspective, completely unaware that his mysterious CEO was sitting across the table asking him to pass the salt. The organizational chart told the whole story. At the top sat Sarah Kim, CEO, the direct line to the technical advisory board, which was really just me wearing a different hat. Below her were 5 VPs, including Daniel Chen, VP of Operations. And below Daniel were 4 department managers, 2 of whom I'd personally hired after reviewing their portfolios. Daniel had no idea. He was 3 levels below me in the company. Hierarchy? What made the situation even more surreal was how good Daniel actually was at his job. I had to admit, grudgingly, that Harvard and Goldman Sachs had taught him valuable skills. His operational reforms were increasing efficiency by measurable percentages. His team loved working for him. His quarterly reviews were consistently excellent. If he weren't my arrogant little brother, I would have been genuinely impressed. But watching him work from the shadows revealed something I'd never noticed before. Daniel was as insecure as he was confident. During video conferences where I participated anonymously, I could see how he deferred to authority, how he second-guessed himself when he thought important people were watching, how desperate he was to prove himself worthy of his position. Brother who'd spent years mocking my ambitions was actually driven by the same fear that had motivated me, the fear of being seen as inadequate. I think the CEO might be impressed with my Q3 numbers, Daniel told the family one Sunday. Sarah mentioned that the technical advisory board specifically commended my inventory optimization project. That was true. I'd written the commendation myself. That's wonderful, honey, Mom beamed. I'm so proud of how you're making your mark in the business world. She glanced at me with that familiar look of disappointment. Marcus, you could learn something from your brother's work ethic. The parallel lives extended beyond work into every aspect of our daily routines. Daniel would leave for the office each morning in his tailored suits, driving the BMW he'd bought with his TechFlow salary. I'd wait an hour, then head to our real headquarters, a sleek downtown office building that Daniel drove past every day without realizing his company owned the entire Miscore. I'd spend my mornings reviewing strategic plans that would affect Daniel's department, approving budgets that included his salary, and making decisions that would shape his career trajectory. Then I'd go home and listen to him complain about how management didn't understand the challenges he was facing. Problem with working for a tech startup, he said one evening, is that the founders think money solves everything. Like, they approve this massive marketing budget without really understanding how it affects operational capacity. The marketing budget he was referring to was part of a comprehensive growth strategy I'd spent 6 months developing. The operational capacity concerns he was raising were valid, which is why I'd already allocated additional resources to his department, a decision he'd learn about in Monday's staff meeting. Maybe you should suggest a solution, I offered. I plan to. I'm putting together a presentation for the executive team next week. If they're smart, they'll listen. They would listen. In fact, I'd already decided to implement his recommendations. Before he made them, the strangest part of this double life was how it changed my perspective on success. Daniel's version of success was external validation. The prestigious job title, the impressive salary, the recognition from superiors. My version had become something else entirely. The quiet satisfaction of building something lasting while remaining invisible. But invisibility came with a cost. Every family gathering was a performance where I had to pretend to be less than I was. Every conversation with Daniel required careful editing to avoid revealing what I knew. Every proud moment I experienced as a business owner had to be celebrated. In private, Sarah often asked me why I didn't just tell them the truth, because I'd explain, the moment I reveal who I am, everything changes. Daniel becomes my employee instead of my brother. My parents start treating me differently. The family dynamic shifts completely, and that's bad because... Because right now, I know exactly who they are when they think nobody important is. Watching, this is their true selves. Once they know I'm successful, I'll never see their authentic reactions again. There was another reason, too. One I didn't like admitting, even to myself. I was enjoying the power of being underestimated. There was something intoxicating about hearing Daniel's plans for the future while knowing I controlled his present. But I also knew this parallel existence couldn't last forever. Success has momentum, and mine was building toward a revelation that would change everything. The family WhatsApp group was a constant source of both entertainment and frustration. Created by Mom to keep everyone connected, it had become Daniel's personal broadcasting platform for his professional achievements and my daily reminder of how little my family thought of me. Closed another major deal today? TechFlow is lucky to have me on the team. Daniel posted one Tuesday afternoon, complete with a selfie from his office. Within minutes, the responses poured in. Mom, so proud of you, sweetheart. Dad, that's my boy, making his mark in the business world. Aunt Linda, Daniel is going places. Such a smart cookie, Uncle Robert. Harvard MBA, paying off. Way to go. Then, inevitably, someone would feel obligated to include me in the conversation. Mom, Marcus, you should ask Daniel for career advice. He might have some insights for you. Me, thanks. I'm doing fine. Always happy to help my big brother figure things out. The emoji made it worse somehow. That little winking face carried 15 years of condescension in a single yellow symbol, but the group chat was just the digital version of what happened at every family gathering. Sunday dinners had become weekly performances where Daniel played. The successful son and I played the struggling disappointment. The script never varied. Daniel would arrive 15 minutes late, apologizing for being slammed at work. He'd spend the first half hour of dinner regaling everyone with stories from TechFlow meetings he'd led, strategies he'd developed, praise he'd received from upper management. I'd sit quietly, occasionally offering generic comments like, "That sounds interesting," or "good for you," while mentally reviewing the emails I'd sent that morning, approving his initiatives. The worst part wasn't Daniel's bragging, it was how naturally the rest of the family joined in diminishing me. "Daniel's really found his calling," Dad would say, usually while I was sitting right there. It's so important to have direction in life, to be building something meaningful. The implication was clear. Unlike Marcus, who's just wasting his potential. I worry about Marcus sometimes, Mom, confided to my aunt during one dinner, speaking about me in third person while I sat 10 feet away. He's so smart, but he doesn't seem to have any ambition. No girlfriend, no career prospects, still living. At home? Maybe he's just a late bloomer, Aunt Linda would offer charitably. He's 30 years old, Mom would reply. How much later can he bloom? These conversations happened around me, about me, but never with me. I'd become a case study in family disappointment, discussed like I wasn't present or couldn't hear them. Irony reached peak levels when Daniel started offering unsolicited life advice. "Marcus, you need to think about your future," he said one evening after describing his latest promotion prospects. "I know a guy in HR at TechFlow. Maybe I could get you an interview for something entry-level. Customer service, maybe. It's not glamorous, but it's a start." "That's really thoughtful," I replied, "but I'm working on some projects that might pan out." Dad laughed, actually laughed. "Projects? Marcus, you can't live on projects forever. At some point, you need steady income, benefits, a real career path. Daniel's offering you a real opportunity," Mom added. "You should be grateful." Word, grateful, hit like a slap. I should be grateful that my younger brother was offering to help me get an entry-level job at the company I owned. But I just nodded and said, "I'll think about it," because what else could I say? That I'd already reviewed Daniel's HR friend's performance reports? That I'd personally approved the customer service budget he was referring to? The entry-level position he was offering paid less per hour than I made per minute? The family dynamic had calcified into roles we all played without question. Daniel, the golden child, destined for greatness. Marcus, the disappointment, stuck in perpetual adolescence. Everyone knew their lines, everyone hit their marks, and everyone seemed comfortable with the performance. Everyone except me. Sitting through these dinners, reading these group chats, absorbing these casual dismissals of my worth, it was building. Something inside me, it's not anger exactly, but a kind of pressure. Like steam in a kettle, looking for release. I started fantasizing about the moment when I'd finally revealed the truth. The look on Daniel's face when he realized his entry-level older brother was actually his boss. The shocked silence when they understood that everything they thought they knew about success and failure was backwards. But I wasn't ready yet. The longer I waited, the more dramatic the revelation would be. And I was beginning to think dramatic was exactly what this family needed. The invitation arrived on cream-colored cardstock with gold embossing. Join us in celebrating Helen Chin's 70th birthday. Mom had been planning this party for months, treating it like a state dinner rather than a family gathering. She'd rented the private dining room at the country club, hired a photographer, and invited every relative, family friend, and neighbor who'd ever shown the slightest interest in our family's affairs. I almost didn't go. For weeks leading up to the party, the family WhatsApp group had been buzzing with preparations and excitement. Daniel was flying in from a business conference in Chicago. Aunt Linda was driving down from Portland, and various cousins were coordinating their attendance like it was a military operation. "This is going to be such a special night," Mom posted. "I can't wait for everyone to see how well Daniel is doing. He's bringing his new girlfriend. She's a lawyer. He just got another promotion at TechFlow." The promotion was real. Approved it myself 2 weeks earlier, along with a $35,000 salary increase that would bring his annual compensation to $215,000. Not bad for someone who'd been with the company less than 2 years. "Marcus, you're coming, right?" Mom texted me privately. "I know these family things aren't really your scene, but it would mean a lot to me." She was right. Family gatherings had become increasingly difficult for me. Every celebration felt like a performance where I had to pretend to be impressed by achievements that paled in comparison to what I was accomplishing in secret. But this was Mom's 70th birthday. Missing it would raise questions I wasn't ready to answer. "Of course I'll be there," I replied. "Good. And Marcus, have you tried to dress up a little? I know you don't have a lot of nice clothes, but this is an important evening." The comment stung, not because it was mean-spirited. Mom genuinely thought she was being helpful, but because it revealed how completely she misunderstood my circumstances. I could have afforded to buy every suit in the men's store, but I'd chosen to maintain my modest appearance as part of my cover. The week before the party, Daniel's excitement reached fever pitch. He'd apparently decided to use Mom's birthday as an opportunity to showcase his success to the extended family. "I'm bringing some materials from work to show everyone," he announced during our regular Sunday dinner. "Photos from the company retreat, my latest performance review, maybe even some financial documents to prove how well TechFlow is doing." My blood ran cold. "Financial documents? Nothing confidential," Daniel said quickly. "Just my pay stubs, bonus statements, that kind of thing. Want Uncle Robert to see that business school really pays off?" Sarah and I had always been careful about operational security, but we'd never considered that Daniel might voluntarily display company information at family gatherings. The TechFlow logo was prominently featured on all employee documentation, and my name appeared in various places as a board member and technical advisor. For the first time in 3 years, I felt genuinely nervous about maintaining my cover. "Is that wise?" I asked. "I mean, most companies prefer employees keep financial information private," Daniel laughed.
Marcus.
"You really don't understand how the business world works. Besides, I'm proud of what I've accomplished." What he'd accomplished at the company I'd built, with the salary I'd approved, working on projects I'd funded. That conversation crystallized something for me. I realized I was no longer hiding my success to protect myself. I was hiding it to protect them. The longer this charade continued, the more humiliating the eventual revelation would be for everyone involved, but especially for Daniel. The night before Mom's party, I sat in my childhood bedroom, which now served as the command center for a $2.8 billion company, and made a decision. I opened my laptop and pulled up TechFlow's employee directory, scrolling down to Daniel's profile page. There it was. His headshot, his title, his department, and in small print at the bottom, the company hierarchy that showed his reporting structure all the way up to the board of directors, all the way up to me. I'd been waiting for the right moment to reveal the truth, and tomorrow night was going to be it. Whether I was ready or not, the tipping point had arrived. Daniel wanted to show off his success at TechFlow to the family. Perfect. I'd give him an audience he'd never forget. The country club's private dining room buzzed with conversation and clinking glasses. Mom looked radiant in her navy blue dress, holding court at the head table while relatives shared stories and toasted her 7 decades of life. I'd positioned myself at a corner table, nursing a beer and watching the family dynamics play out. Like a theatrical performance I'd seen too many times before, Daniel was in his element. He'd arrived fashionably late with his lawyer girlfriend, Jennifer, and had spent the first hour making rounds like a politician at a fundraiser. His navy suit was perfectly tailored, his confidence was magnetic, and his smile never wavered as he worked the room. "Have you met my brother Daniel?" I heard various relatives saying throughout the evening. "He's doing so well for himself. VP at some big tech company." I checked my phone. 17 new emails from clients, 3 contract proposals awaiting, my approval, and a text from Sarah asking if I was really going through with tonight's plan. "Time to come clean," her message read. I typed back. Soon, the moment arrived during dessert. Mom had just finished opening gifts when Daniel stood up, tapping his wine glass with a butter knife to get everyone's attention. If I could have everyone's attention for just a moment, he began, his voice carrying that practiced confidence I'd heard in dozens of business meetings. "I wanted to take this opportunity to share some exciting news with the family." The room quieted down, all eyes turning toward Daniel. Jennifer beamed at him encouragingly. "As many of you know, I've been working at TechFlow Solutions for almost 2 years now. What you might not know is that we just had our best quarter in company history. I'm proud to say that I played a significant role in that success." Polite applause rippled through the room. Uncle Robert raised his glass in a small salute. "In fact," Daniel continued, pulling out his phone, "I brought something to show you all. This is my latest paycheck." My heart started pounding. This was the moment I'd been both dreading and anticipating for months. Daniel held up his phone. It's angling the screen so the nearby tables could see. "TechFlow just gave me another promotion and a substantial raise. This is what real success looks like." Aunt Linda leaned forward, squinting at the screen. "Oh my goodness, Daniel. That's wonderful. 6 figures with bonuses," Daniel said proudly. "Not bad for someone who's only been in the workforce for 2 years." More congratulations flowed from around the room.
Oh.
Mom dabbed at her eyes with pride. Dad stood up to shake Daniel's hand, but I was watching Daniel's face, waiting for the exact moment when triumph would turn to confusion. It happened slowly at first. Daniel's smile faltered slightly as he looked more closely at his phone screen, his brow furrowed. He brought the phone closer to his face, as if he couldn't quite believe what he was seeing. Then his face went completely white. "Daniel," asked, concern creeping into her voice, "what's wrong?" The room had gone quiet, sensing that something was off. Daniel was staring at his phone like it had personally betrayed him, his mouth slightly open in shock. At the company logo," he stammered. I always just looked at the numbers, not the ... He looked up from his phone, his eyes scanning the room until they found me. When our gazes met, I saw the exact moment when everything clicked into place. The color drained completely from his face. "Marcus," he whispered, barely audible across the room. "What about Marcus?" Mom asked, following Daniel's stare to where I sat calmly, finishing my piece of chocolate cake. Daniel's voice cracked when he spoke again. "Marcus, you're my boss." The words hung in the air like a bomb waiting to explode. 23 family members and friends turned to look at me with varying degrees of confusion, disbelief, and shock. I set down my fork, wiped my mouth with my napkin, and stood up slowly. "Well," I said, my voice steady despite my racing heart, "I suppose it's time we talked about what I actually do for work." The silence in the room was absolute. You could have heard a pin drop on the thick carpet. Daniel was still staring at his phone, then at me, then back at his phone. "TechFlow Solutions," he said slowly, reading from his paycheck. "Chairman of the board, Marcus Chen." Jennifer grabbed his arm. "Daniel, what's happening? Who's Marcus?" "Chen. He's my brother," Daniel whispered. "My older brother. The one who ... the one who what?" Dad asked, his voice sharp with confusion. Daniel couldn't finish the sentence. He couldn't say the family disappointment because the words had lost all meaning in the span of 30 seconds. I pulled out my own phone, opened the TechFlow corporate app, and held it up so everyone could see the executive dashboard with my photo and title clearly displayed. "Daniel's absolutely right," I said calmly. "TechFlow did have an exceptional quarter, bore $347 million in revenue to be exact. And yes, Daniel deserves credit for his contributions to that success. He's been an excellent VP of operations." The room erupted in chaos. Everyone started talking at once, asking questions, demanding explanations, trying to process information that completely contradicted everything they thought they knew about our family, but I only had eyes for Daniel, who was still standing, frozen with his phone in his hand, staring at me like I was a ghost. "How long?" he finally managed to ask. "How long? What? How long have you been? How long have I been working for you?" I smiled, the first genuine smile I'd worn at a family gathering in years. Since your first day, little brother? Right. Since your very first day? The explosion of voices that followed my revelation created a cacophony that probably violated the country club's noise ordinances. Uncle Robert was demanding to see my phone. Aunt Linda was frantically Googling TechFlow Solutions CEO on her tablet. Cousins were pulling up LinkedIn profiles and news articles. Mom was sitting in stunned silence with tears streaming down her face. But the center of the storm was Daniel, who remained frozen in place, his phone still displaying the paycheck that had started this avalanche. "This is impossible," he said, his voice barely audible above the chaos. "There has to be some mistake, some confusion." I walked over to him calmly, pulling up TechFlow's annual report on my phone. "No mistake, Daniel. Would you like to see the documentation?" The annual report was a thing of beauty to 127 pages of financial statements, growth projections, employee testimonials, and industry recognition. The cover featured a photo of our downtown headquarters, a sleek glass building that Daniel drove past every morning without realizing his family owned it. $2.8 billion in annual revenue, I said, scrolling through the executive summary. 3,047 employees across 12 states, recognized by Fortune magazine. As one of the fastest growing companies in America, Dad grabbed the phone from my hands, his eyes wide as he scanned the numbers. "This says Marcus Chen, founder and chairman. But how is this possible? It's possible because I've been building this company for the past 8 years. While you all assumed I was playing video games in my bedroom, Jennifer, Daniel's girlfriend, stepped forward with her lawyer instincts kicking in. Can you prove this? I mean, anyone can create fake documents on their phone, smart woman. Liked her immediately. Absolutely. I pulled out my business card. Something I rarely used, but always carried, and handed it to her. Feel free to call the main number and ask for the chairman's office. Or check our website. Or look up any of the dozens of news articles that have been written about TechFlow over the past 3 years. While Jennifer frantically researched on her phone, the family continued to bombard me with questions. "Why didn't you tell us?" Mom asked through her tears. "When did this happen?" Dad demanded. "How much money are we talking about?" Uncle Robert wanted to know. But I was focused on Daniel, who had finally managed to sit down before his legs gave out completely. 8 years, he said slowly. "You've been doing this for 8 years? Started in my bedroom," I confirmed. "All those times you made fun of me for playing on the computer? I was writing code, building systems, landing clients. Every time you called me a disappointment, I was actually running board meetings and signing million-dollar contracts." The irony wasn't lost on anyone in the room. For years, Daniel had positioned himself as the successful brother while I played the role of family failure. Now everyone was realizing that the dynamic had been completely backwards. "Holy shit," Jennifer whispered, looking up from her phone. "TechFlow Solutions is real, and it's huge. There are articles in TechCrunch, Forbes, Wall Street Journal, ... She looked at me with new respect. "You're actually famous in the tech world." "Moderately well known?" I corrected modestly. Daniel's voice was hollow when he spoke again. "All those times I offered to help you get a job, all those times I talked about my career like it was such a big deal, you were listening to me? Brag about working at your company. Your work was legitimately impressive," I said, and I meant it. "I promoted you based on merit, not family connections. You earned every achievement, but you knew. You knew everything. Every meeting I described, every project I worked on, every success I celebrated, you already knew about all of it because you were the one approving it." The weight of the revelation was settling over him like a heavy blanket. Years of condescension and superiority were crumbling in real time. "Daniel," Mom said softly, "all those times you called Marcus, ... The family disappointment," he finished. For her, I called him the family disappointment. He looked around the room at the faces staring back at him, some sympathetic, some shocked, some clearly enjoying the dramatic reversal. "God," he whispered, "what have I done?" That question hung in the air as the full magnitude of the situation sank in. This wasn't just about a successful business or hidden wealth. This was about 8 years of family dynamics built on completely false assumptions. 8 years of treating someone like a failure while they quietly became more successful than any of us had ever imagined. The truth had finally come out, but the real question was, what happened next? The silence that followed Daniel's question stretched uncomfortably long. 23 people sitting in a private dining room, processing information that rewrote everything they thought they knew about our family hierarchy. The birthday cake, sat forgotten on the table, candles long since blown out. Then Daniel exploded. "This is bullshit," shouted, standing up so fast his chair toppled backward. "You let me humiliate myself for years. You sat there listening to me offer you entry-level jobs at your own company." The anger was expected, but the volume caught everyone off guard. Several relatives physically recoiled from the intensity of his outburst. "Daniel, calm down," Jennifer said, reaching for his arm. He shook her off. "No, I won't calm down. You understand what he's done? He's been playing some sick game, watching me make a fool of myself while he held all the cards." "I never asked you to mock my career," I said quietly. "Never asked you to call me a disappointment, because you never told me the truth." "It have mattered?" The question came out sharper than I intended. "Would you have treated me differently if you'd known? Or would you have just found other ways to diminish me?" Daniel's face flushed red. That's not... That's not the point. Actually, that's exactly the point." I stood up to face him directly. "For 8 years, you've had the chance to treat me with basic respect. You've had countless opportunities to be a decent brother, and you chose condescension every single time. Because you thought what? That success only looks one way? That intelligence only comes from Harvard? That worth is measured by public recognition?" Dad tried to intervene. "Boys, let's not know, Dad," I said, not taking my eyes off Daniel. "We're going to finish this conversation right here, right now." I pulled out my phone and opened my banking app, navigating to my personal financial statement. The number at the top of the screen was staggering. $487 million. "You want to know the truth, Daniel? This is my net worth. $487 million. That's what playing computer games earned me while you were learning business theory." In classrooms, the number hit the room like a physical force. Someone gasped. Uncle Robert's wine glass slipped from his hand and shattered on the floor. "That's impossible," Daniel stammered. "Jennifer, you're a lawyer. Tell him if it's possible to fake bank statements in real time on a mobile app." Jennifer examined my phone screen with professional skepticism, then looked up at Daniel with something approaching. "Daniel, this is real. The app, the interface, the routing numbers. This is legitimate Bank of America documentation." Daniel stared at the number, his anger temporarily replaced by pure shock. $500 million and growing. TechFlow's IPO is scheduled for next year. Conservative estimates put my post-IPO net worth somewhere north of $2 billion. But the room had gone completely silent again. Even the waitstaff had stopped moving, clearly eavesdropping on what had become the most dramatic family confrontation in country club history. Mom finally found her voice. "Marcus, honey, why didn't you tell us? We're your family. We love you." "You?" I asked, turning to face her. "Do you love me? Or do you love the idea of who you thought I should be?" "That's not fair," she protested. "Isn't it? When's the last time any of you asked about my work with genuine curiosity instead of pity? When's the last time anyone in this room treated my accomplishments as worthy of celebration?" I gestured toward Daniel. "Your golden child has been collecting paychecks from a company I built from nothing. He's been implementing strategies I developed. He's been bragging about working for some tech genius without realizing that genius was his older brother." Daniel's anger reignited. "You think this? Mac, you better than me? You think money makes you superior?" "No," I said firmly. "Money doesn't make me superior, but it sure as hell doesn't make me inferior. That's a lesson you never learned. I worked hard for everything I achieved. And my company, with my resources, under systems I created." My voice was rising now. 8 years of suppressed frustration finally breaking free. "You worked hard, and I respect that. But you also spent 8 years treating me like I was worthless, while building your career on my foundation." The confrontation was spiraling beyond what anyone expected. This wasn't just about business success or hidden wealth. It was about respect, about family dynamics, about years of accumulated hurt finally finding its voice. And we were just getting started. The confrontation had reached a fever pitch when I made a decision that surprised everyone, including myself. Instead of continuing to escalate, I sat back down and gestured for Daniel to do the same. "You want to know the real difference between us?" I asked, my voice calm again. "It's not intelligence. It's not work ethic. It's not even business skills." Daniel remained standing, but his posture had shifted from aggressive to defensive. "The difference is that you've always needed external validation to feel successful. The Harvard degree, the Goldman Sachs internship, the impressive job title, the 6-figure salary, they're all external measures of worth." I pulled out a small wooden plaque from my jacket pocket. something I'd brought specifically for this moment. It was weathered and simple, with text that read Tech Entrepreneur of the Year, American Business Awards. I won this 3 years ago, I said, setting it on the table. It's considered one of the most prestigious honors in the industry. The ceremony was broadcast on CNBC. My acceptance speech has been viewed over 2 million times on YouTube. The family leaned forward to examine the award. Dad picked it up, running his fingers over the engraved text. "Why didn't you tell us?" Mom asked again, but this time her voice held wonder instead of hurt. "Because I didn't need to." The award didn't make me successful. It recognized success I'd already built. The difference is subtle, but important. I stood up and walked to the window overlooking the country club's golf course. "Daniel, you've spent your entire career chasing recognition. Harvard MBA so people would call you smart. Goldman Sachs internship so people would call you prestigious. VP title so people would call you important. There's nothing wrong with ambition," Daniel said defensively. "You're absolutely right. But there's a difference between ambition and insecurity. I built TechFlow because I wanted to solve problems for real businesses. You took the job at TechFlow because you wanted to impress people with your job title." Jennifer was watching this exchange with fascination, clearly seeing her boyfriend. In a new light, the irony, I continued, is that your approach to success made you dependent on other people's opinions. My approach made me independent of them. I turned back to face the room. "For 8 years, I've listened to you all discuss success like it's a performance. Daniel's Harvard degree was successful because it impressed people. His Goldman Sachs internship was successful because it looked good on his resume. His TechFlow position was successful because it paid well and had a fancy title. But real success, sustainable success, doesn't require an audience.
8.
It doesn't need applause or recognition or validation from family members. It just needs to work." Dad was still examining the award. "Marcus, this says you spoke to an audience of 12,000 business leaders. 13,000, actually."
Actually, but I didn't do it for the audience.
"I did it because I had something useful to share." The distinction was lost on most of them, but I could see Jennifer beginning to understand. "What you're describing," she said slowly, "is the difference between intrinsic and extrinsic motivation." Exactly. Daniel has been extrinsically motivated his entire life. He achieves things because of how they make him look to other people. I've been intrinsically motivated. I achieve things because of how they make me feel about myself. Daniel finally sat down, the fight going out of him. "So what? I'm supposed to feel bad about wanting recognition for my work? Not at all. But you might want to examine why you need recognition so desperately that you'll diminish other people to get it." The room fell quiet as everyone processed this. Uncle Robert broke the silence with a question that cut to the heart of everything.
"Marcus,
"If you didn't need our approval, why reveal yourself now? Why tonight?" I smiled, looking directly at Daniel. "Because I realized something recently. True success isn't just about building something great. It's about helping other people build great things too. And I can't help Daniel become truly successful until he understands what success actually means. You want to help me?" Daniel asked, confusion replacing anger. "I've been helping you for 2 years. I promoted you based on merit. I gave you challenging projects. I created opportunities for you to grow, but you never told me. ... Because I wanted you to succeed on your own terms first. To discover what you were capable of without the complicated dynamics of family involved." I looked around the room at my parents, my relatives, my brother's girlfriend, who was probably reconsidering everything she thought she knew about our family. The truth is, Daniel is actually really good at his job. He's innovative, hardworking, and he commands respect from his team. But he's been so focused on external validation that he's never appreciated his own genuine talents.
"Oh, what happened?"
"Now," Mom asked. That was the question that would determine whether this revelation destroyed our family or finally made it. Honest, Daniel didn't come to work Monday morning or Tuesday. By Wednesday, Sarah was asking questions. "Your brother submitted a resignation letter," she told me during our morning executive meeting. "Effective immediately. No 2 weeks notice, no transition plan, nothing." I wasn't surprised, but I was disappointed. I'd hoped that the shock of Sunday night's revelation might lead to growth rather than retreat. What did the letter say? Sarah slid a printed email across the conference table. Daniel's resignation was brief and professional, but I could read. The hurt between the lines. "Dear Ms. Kim, please accept my immediate resignation from my position as VP of Operations at TechFlow Solutions. Due to personal circumstances that have created an untenable conflict of interest, I am unable to continue in my current role. I appreciate the opportunities for professional growth that TechFlow has provided. I wish the company continued success. Sincerely, Daniel Chen. He's not answering his phone, I told Sarah. Jennifer says he's been locked in his apartment since Sunday night, refusing to talk to anyone. Are you going to try to convince him to stay? I thought about it. Daniel was genuinely good at his job, and his departure would create operational challenges that would take months to resolve. But more importantly, he was my brother. And despite everything that had happened between us, I wanted him to succeed. Not yet. He needs time to process. But time wasn't healing Daniel's wounds. If anything, the days that followed made things worse. The family WhatsApp group had exploded with relatives trying to make sense of Sunday's revelations. Some were supportive, others were confused, and a few were clearly embarrassed by their own behavior over the years. Aunt Linda posted a long message apologizing for not recognizing Marcus's achievements and praising my incredible success story. Uncle Robert shared several news articles about TechFlow, adding comments like, "So proud of our family's entrepreneur." The sudden reversal was almost as uncomfortable as the original dismissal had been. But Daniel remained silent in the group chat. No posts, no responses, no acknowledgement of the dozens of messages directed at him. On Thursday evening, he decided to drive to his apartment. It was a sleek downtown high-rise that he'd rented with his TechFlow salary. My salary, technically. Though that distinction felt less important now than it had a week ago. The doorman knew me from previous visits. When Daniel and I had maintained the pretense of a normal brotherly relationship, he let me up without question. Daniel answered his door looking like he hadn't slept in days. His usually perfect hair was disheveled. He was wearing the same clothes from Sunday night, and his apartment looked like it had been hit by a tornado. "I was wondering when you'd show up," he said. Stepping aside to let me in, the living room was covered in papers, printouts of TechFlow's corporate structure, news articles about the company, and what looked like Daniel's entire employment. Files spread across the coffee table. "Doing some research?" I asked, "trying to figure out how long you've been lying to me." His voice was flat, exhausted. "Turns out it's been longer than I thought." He pointed to a newspaper clipping from 3 years ago. TechFlow Solutions named fastest growing company in state. There's a quote from the anonymous founder about building a business from nothing. That was you, wasn't it? I nodded. In this, he held up another article. TechFlow announces $500 million expansion. The mysterious CEO talks about creating jobs and supporting local communities. Also you, Daniel, do you know what the worst part is? He interrupted. It's not that you were successful. It's not even that you hid it from me. It's that I spent 2 years working my ass off to impress a boss who turned out to be my older brother. He sat down heavily on his couch, surrounded by the evidence of my deception. Every performance review, every presentation, every late night. I stayed at the office trying to prove myself you were watching. Knew exactly who I was, what I was capable of, and what I was trying to achieve. Your work was genuinely impressive, I said. I promoted you based on merit. But you knew things about me that I didn't even know about myself. You had access to data about my performance, my potential, my blind spots. It wasn't a fair evaluation. It was right, and we both knew it. So what happens now? I asked, echoing Mom's question from Sunday night. Daniel looked around his apartment, the scattered papers documenting his unwitting employment by his own brother, at the life he'd built on a foundation he'd never understood. Now I figure. Out who I am when I'm not trying to be better than Marcus Chen? The irony of that statement hung in the air between us, heavy with years of misunderstanding and misdirected competition. And if I wanted to help you figure that out, the first time since Sunday, Daniel smiled. It was sad and tired, but genuine. I think I need to do this one on my own, big brother. The phone call came at 6:47 a.m. on a Tuesday, 3 weeks after Mom's birthday party. I was reviewing quarterly projections when Mom's contact photo appeared on my screen. Marcus, honey, have you seen the newspaper? I hadn't. Despite running a company that regularly made business headlines, I rarely read local news anymore. Newspaper, the Herald, front page of the business section. There's a huge article about you. My stomach dropped. We'd managed to keep local media attention minimal for years, partly through strategic anonymity and partly because most reporters were more interested in Silicon Valley startups than Midwest success stories. What does it say? Hometown hero builds tech empire? Marcus, there's a photo of you in TechFlow's headquarters and ... Her voice broke slightly. And a quote from someone at your high school talking about how proud they are of your success. I found the article online within minutes. The headline was exactly as Mom had described, but the content was worse than I'd feared. Some enterprising reporter had connected Sunday Night's Family, its drama to TechFlow's corporate structure, and decided to write a feel-good story about local entrepreneurship. The article included quotes from 3 former classmates to high school, teachers, Mrs. Rodriguez from the Mexican restaurant, and most embarrassingly, my parents. We always knew Marcus was special. Dad was quoted as saying, he had a unique vision for technology that we didn't fully understand at the time. The revisionist history was breathtaking in its audacity, but the real impact wasn't the article itself, it was what happened next. Within hours, my phone was buzzing with congratulatory messages from people I hadn't spoken to in years. High school acquaintances suddenly wanted to reconnect. Former classmates were reaching out through LinkedIn. Local business leaders were inviting me to charity events and networking dinners. The invisibility I'd carefully maintained for 8 years evaporated overnight. Marcus Chen, the grocery store checkout clerk, had recognized me from the newspaper photo. I can't believe you shop here. Shouldn't you have personal assistants for groceries? This conversation, or variations of it, happened everywhere I went. The bank teller who'd processed my deposits for years suddenly treated me like visiting royalty. The barista at my regular coffee shop asked for a selfie. Even my dentist wanted to discuss investment opportunities during my routine cleaning. But the most difficult conversations were with family members who were desperately trying to rewrite years of their own behavior. I always believed in you, Aunt Linda insisted during a phone call. Remember when you were working on computers in high school? I told your mother you were going places. She had said no such thing. In fact, she'd been one of the most vocal critics of my computer obsession. Uncle Robert was even worse, calling to propose various business partnerships and investment opportunities, suddenly treating me like a long-lost financial advisor rather than the nephew he'd dismissed for years. The family WhatsApp group had become a steady stream of relatives sharing articles about TechFlow, posting congratulatory messages, and trying to associate themselves with my success. People who hadn't spoken to me in years were suddenly proud family members eager to bask in reflected glory. Everyone's talking about you at work, Mom reported during one of her daily check-in calls. Mrs. Patterson from down the street says, her daughter wants to go into computers now because of your story. You're inspiring people. The attention wasn't entirely unwelcome, but it felt hollow. Where had this pride been when I was building the company from my childhood bedroom? Where was the encouragement when I was working 18-hour days for clients who paid me in hundreds rather than millions? The most telling conversation came from Dad, who called to discuss family legacy and how proud he was of my traditional work ethic. You know, Marcus, I always believed that real success comes from building something lasting. That's what you've done? The irony was palpable. The same man who'd criticized me for not following a traditional career path was now praising me for my non-traditional approach. But the community response wasn't entirely superficial. The article had genuinely inspired some people. Local high school invited me to speak to their computer science classes. 3 young entrepreneurs reached out for mentorship. The Economic Development Office wanted to feature TechFlow as an example of homegrown business success. These requests felt more authentic than the family revisionism, so I started saying yes to them. The speaking engagement at Roosevelt High School was particularly meaningful. Standing in front of 50 teenagers, many of whom looked as uncertain about their futures as I'd felt at their age, I tried to offer something more valuable than success porn. The most important thing I learned, I told them, is that external validation is temporary, but self-respect is permanent. Build something you're proud of, regardless of whether anyone else understands it. After the presentation, a junior named Amy approached me with a question that cut to the heart of everything. Mr. Chen, what do you do when your family doesn't believe in your dreams? I thought about Daniel, still in self-imposed exile, about my parents, who were now rewriting history to make themselves look supportive, about 8 years of dinners where I'd felt invisible and dismissed. You prove them wrong, I said. But more importantly, you prove yourself right. 6 months after the revelation, I was sitting in the conference room where TechFlow's board of directors was about to make one of the most important decisions in the company's history. It's not about expansion or acquisitions or IPO timing, but about giving away $50 million. The Marcus Chen Foundation for Educational Technology, Sarah read from the formal proposal. It's dedicated to providing coding, education, and entrepreneurship training to underserved communities. The foundation had been my idea, born from dozens of conversations with young people who'd reached out after the newspaper article. Kids who saw technology as their path to a better future but lacked access to quality education or mentorship. 50 million is a substantial commitment, board member Jennifer Walsh observed. Are you certain about the scope? I was. After months of research and planning, I'd identified 12 schools in economically disadvantaged areas that could benefit from comprehensive technology programs. The foundation would provide equipment, curriculum, teacher training, and ongoing support. The goal isn't just to teach coding, I explained. It's to teach kids that they can build their own opportunities regardless of their circumstances. Vote was unanimous. I suspected they would have supported a much larger commitment if I'd asked. But the foundation wasn't just about helping others. It was about establishing new boundaries with my own family. The public nature of the announcement forced conversations that had been simmering since Mom's birthday party. This is wonderful, Marcus, Mom said when I called to tell her about the foundation. We're so proud of what you're doing. Thank you, I replied. But I need to be clear about something. Is pride you're expressing now? Where was it 8 years ago? The question hung in the air for a long moment. Marcus, we didn't understand you didn't understand because you didn't try to understand. There's a difference. It wasn't an angry conversation, but it was an honest one. For the first time in my adult life, I was setting clear expectations about how I wanted to be treated by my family. Going forward, I told her, I need relationships that are based on who I actually am, not who you think I should be. That means no more comparisons to Daniel. No more dismissive comments about my work. No more assumptions about my capabilities or my choices. Of course, honey. We just want what you want is to be proud of me, now that it's socially acceptable. What I need is respect that doesn't depend on external validation. Similar conversations happened with Dad, with various relatives, and eventually with the extended family network that had suddenly rediscovered their connection to me. The hardest boundary to establish was with Daniel himself. He'd been essentially silent for months, declining family gatherings and avoiding most communication. But when the foundation announcement made national news, he finally called. $50 million, he said without preamble. That's more than most people make in a lifetime. It is, and you're just giving it away. I'm investing it in something that matters to me. There's a difference. We talked for an hour, the longest conversation we'd had since the confrontation at Mom's party. Daniel was working for a consulting firm now, helping small businesses with operational efficiency. It was good work, meaningful work, and for the first time in years, he sounded genuinely content. I've been thinking about what you said, he told me near the end of the call, about intrinsic versus extrinsic motivation. You were right. I spent so much energy trying to impress people that I forgot to figure out what actually mattered to me. And what does matter to you? Helping businesses run better, solving real problems for real people. It's not glamorous, but it's satisfying in a way that Goldman Sachs' job never was. Progress, I thought. Real progress. The foundation launch event was held at Roosevelt High School, the same place where I'd spoken to computer science students months earlier. 50 students, teachers, and community leaders gathered in the auditorium to hear about the programs that would soon transform their school's technology education. During my speech, I noticed Amitha Jr., who'd asked about families not believing in dreams, sitting in the front row. After the presentation, she approached me again. Mr. Chen, I got accepted to study computer science at State University. I wanted to thank you for the advice about proving yourself right. That's wonderful. Amy, what changed? I stopped waiting for other people to believe in me and started believing in myself. Standing there, surrounded by young people who were just beginning to understand their own potential, I realized something important. The best revenge against being underestimated isn't proving others wrong, it's creating opportunities for people who might otherwise be underestimated themselves. Success, I'd finally learned, wasn't about winning a competition with my family. It was about building something larger than the petty dynamics that had defined my youth. 1 year later, I was sitting in my real office, not the childhood bedroom where this journey began, but the corner suite on the 15th floor of Tech Flow Tower when my assistant brought me an envelope marked personal. The handwriting was familiar, though I hadn't seen it in months. Daniel's name was written in the return address corner, and the envelope felt substantial, like it contained more than just a letter. Inside was a handwritten note on simple white paper, along with something unexpected, his old Harvard Business School diploma. Marcus, the letter began. I've been thinking about this for a year. I finally know what I want to say. You were right about everything, not about business or technology or success, though you were right about those things too. You were right about me, about what drove me, what scared me, and what I needed to learn. For 30 years, I built my identity around being better than you. When we were kids, I was the smarter brother. In college, I was the successful one. Family dinners, I was the son who made our parents proud. My entire sense of self depended on being superior to my older brother. When I found out the truth about TechFlow, it didn't just embarrass MIT, completely destroyed my understanding of who I was. If you had been successful this whole time, then what did that make me? If my greatest achievement was working for your company, then what value did I bring to the world? It took me months to realize I was asking the wrong questions. The right question wasn't, how do I compare to Marcus? The right question was, what do I want to build with my own life? I'm returning this diploma because it represents everything that was wrong with my approach to success. I earned it to impress people, not because I was passionate about business education. I displayed it to signal my achievements, not because it represented meaningful learning. My new business is doing well. We're helping small companies improve their operations, and I'm good at it. Really good. But more importantly, I love it. For the first time in my life, I'm doing work that matters to me rather than work that impresses other people. I know I hurt you over the years. I know I dismissed your worth and made you feel small in your own family. I can't undo that damage, but I can make sure it never happens again. You taught me that real success isn't about being better than someone else, it's about being better than you were yesterday. You taught me that worth isn't measured by external validation, but by internal satisfaction. You taught me that the best revenge against being underestimated is living a life that makes estimation irrelevant. Most importantly, you taught me how to be proud of someone else's success without feeling diminished by it. I'm proud of you, Marcus. Not because you built a billion-dollar company or because you're my brother, but because you stayed true to yourself when everyone around you suggested you should be someone different. I hope someday I can be half as authentic as you've always been. Your brother finally, Daniel P. Jennifer and I are engaged. We'd like you to be my best man if you're willing. I know I haven't earned that honor yet. I'm hoping to spend the next few decades proving I'm worthy of having you as a brother. I read the letter 3 times, each reading revealing new layers of growth and self-awareness that I hadn't expected from Daniel. The diploma felt symbolic in my hands, not worthless, but no longer the defining artifact of his identity. My phone buzzed with a text from Sarah. Board meeting in 10 minutes. IPO discussion. TechFlow's initial public offering was scheduled for next month. Conservative estimates suggested it would make me the youngest billionaire in the state's history. The success I'd built in secret was about to become impossible to hide, but sitting there with Daniel's letter, I realized that the number in my bank account had never been the point. The real victory wasn't proving my family wrong about my potential, it was helping them discover their own. Daniel had found work that fulfilled him rather than impressed others. My parents had learned to express pride without comparison. Even the extended family had started treating success as something to celebrate rather than compete over. The foundation was funding technology programs in 23 schools now. It was creating opportunities for kids who reminded me of my younger self, brilliant but underestimated, capable but dismissed. I pulled out my phone and typed a response to Daniel. I'd be honored to be your best man. And I'm proud of you too, not for what you've achieved, but for who you've become. Then I walked into the board meeting where we would discuss taking TechFlow public, making official the success I'd been building for nearly a decade. But the real success, the kind that actually mattered, was already complete. I'd proven that worth doesn't require recognition, that intelligence doesn't need validation, and that the best way to handle being called a disappointment is to disappoint no one more important than yourself. Looking back, I'm grateful for every dismissive comment, every mocking laugh, every assumption that I was wasting my potential. Without them, I might never have learned the difference between succeeding for others and succeeding for myself. And that, more than any IPO or bank balance, was the lesson that changed everything.